Hi everyone, I'm Sleepless Scientist. Tonight we're curling up inside a time machine that doesn't hum or glow, but breathes warmth and smells faintly of ferns and ancient rain. You're not falling asleep alone tonight, you're falling back, way back, to a time before the thunder of claws or the clatter of teeth. A time when the earth, still figuring itself out, felt like a toddler with a temper. Imagine that no dinosaurs yet, not even their shadows. Just a world humming with quiet potential and things with too many legs. You'd be surprised how many of Earth's greatest creatures came from times when it felt like absolutely nothing was happening. And before we start our journey together, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Let me know in the comments below. I'm always curious where these quiet little science stories are drifting to, and if this video helped you while you were there. And I mean that. I picture someone in a cabin in the mountains or on a bunk bed in a city high-rise, both tucked in, both listening to this same story at wildly different hours. This channel keeps me going night after night, just knowing someone out there is falling asleep a little softer because of something I whispered. Let's start. You shuffle through a thick, hot fog. There's no bird song here, no buzzing insects, just this eerie stillness, as if Earth is holding its breath. And in a way, it is. Welcome to the late Permian period, around 252 million years ago. You won't find a T-Rex here, or a Triceratops. Heck, you won't even find grass. Just bizarre ferns towering lycophytes and enough humidity to fog your glasses if you know you'd brought glasses through time. It's a harsh world. The continents are fused together in one giant supercontinent called Pangaea, which sounds like a place that should host a yoga retreat, but instead hosts deathly dry interiors, mega hurricanes at the edges, and a planetary mood best described as existential. Life is crawling literally out of the oceans. Amphibians are trying to figure out land legs. The real pioneers here, though, are the early reptiles. Scaly little creatures, some barely the size of your finger, but tough. Survivors. They don't need moist skin like amphibians. They've got eggs with shells. They're laying down the genetic blueprint for what's coming. And what's coming is both glorious and slightly terrifying. You spot a Dimetrodon, which, let's clear this up early, is not a dinosaur. It looks like a lizard who stole a sailboat and fused with it. That tall sail on its back, possibly used for temperature control, or to attract mates, or to threaten rivals. Scientists still debate it because of course they do. Nothing like a few fossilized vertebrae to launch an academic brawl. But even Dimetrodon isn't technically a reptile. It's closer to mammals than to dinosaurs. You squint at it, realizing it might be one of your great-great-great-granduncles, genetically speaking. He looks annoyed, probably because you're staring. Then, as if someone pulled a plug on the whole world, everything goes quiet. This is the Permian extinction event, also called the Great Dying. Around 90% of marine species and 70% of land species go kaput. No asteroid, no smoking gun. Possibly volcanoes in what is now Siberia spewing enough gas to cook the climate. Possibly methane bubbles from the sea floor. Possibly both. Possibly something we haven't even guessed yet. All you know is the air tastes like metal. The plants look sick and everything's turning to ash. But not everything dies. Some tough, snub-nosed reptiles survive. They hunker down in burrows, eat whatever's left. Wait. And it's those stubborn, unglamorous survivors, archosaurs, who will eventually give rise to crocodiles, pterosaurs, and yes, dinosaurs. Isn't that always how it goes? The flashy don't survive. The weirdos who don't give up do. Somewhere near your foot, a tiny creature darts by. It looks like a half lizard, half cat on espresso. You bend down, but it's gone. Blink and you'll miss 1,000,000 years in this place. And then, slowly, the earth recovers. The sky softens. The ferns unfurl again. The survivors emerge. And life, persistent as ever, starts tinkering with new forms. Your time machine doesn't beep or whir, it just gently lifts you into the next layer of time. You're not even sure when the Permian ended and the Triassic began. But now the air smells different. Hopeful. A little wild. Somewhere just out of view, something is about to hatch. But more on that after you rest a little deeper. Here's a fun thought to fall asleep on. The Earth has tried to kill life multiple times. And every time life said, nah, I'll adapt. Oh, and the weirdest creature during this time? A little thing called Coelurosaurus, a glider lizard with ribs that stretched into wings. Basically, a reptilian flying squirrel. It didn't make it to the dinosaur age, but what a way to go. The ground beneath you shifts almost playfully. It's the Triassic now, about 230 million years ago. You didn't feel the change, but everything around you has. The plants are leaner, sharper. The sky has this washed-out lemony tint. And there's a peculiar smell in the air like wet stone and pine sap baking under two suns, even though there's still only one. Life is no longer just surviving. It's experimenting. You crouch beside a scrubby fern and spot something darting between the roots. It's fast nervous, maybe. It's also very small, barely the length of your forearm. Meet Eoraptor, one of the earliest known dinosaurs. Its name means dawn thief, which feels unfair considering it mostly eats bugs and probably wants to be left alone. Eoraptor is part of a new family tree, forming beneath your feet the dinosaurs. But at this stage, calling them dinosaurs feels premature, like naming a toddler, supreme leader. They're lanky, fragile, and frankly kind of weird looking. The Triassic is full of contenders. It's like a startup pitch night, but for evolutionary designs. You've got crocodile relatives trying to walk upright early, mammals skulking in the underbrush, and even a few creatures that look like they're wearing hand-me-downs from both birds and lizards. The climate is rough, hot, dry, seasonal. Rainforests are rare, and most of the land is open scrub, perfect for sprinting if you're built like a chicken on stilts. That's where Herrerasaurus enters the scene. It's bigger than Eoraptor, more of a raptor meets Komodo dragon vibe, and it's likely one of the first real theropods. You watch it stalk a lizard thing the size of a shoebox. It pounces, jaws snapping, and for a moment you think, okay, maybe dinosaurs do deserve the hype. Still, they're not dominant yet. They're underdogs. Most of the power players at this stage belong to the Crurotarsans, early crocodile cousins that actually walk on two legs and look like nightmare chickens with armor. Scientists still debate why dinosaurs eventually won out. Was it their posture? Their lungs? Their eggs? Some think it was just luck. Others say their upright gait gave them the edge when climates got more extreme. Maybe they simply outlasted the competition, sprinted faster, breathed deeper, laid better timed eggs. You lie back in the warm dirt, watching clouds creep across the copper sky. Overhead, a creature with bat-like wings flutters past. It's Dactylus, one of the earliest pterosaurs, not a dinosaur, but still a cousin. Its wings are clumsy like a kite someone's thrown badly, but it works. It's flying. This is the age of experiments, after all. You sit quietly, listening to the rustle of brush and the distant cackle of some unseen predator. You can feel the earth building up to something. The same way you know when a storm is coming, not because of thunder, but because the birds go quiet. Let's take a moment to appreciate a weird little fact. Some early dinosaurs may have had proto-feathers, not to fly, but to flirt. That's right, fluff, not for flight, but for showing off. If you've ever witnessed a pigeon strut like it owns the sidewalk, you've seen the spirit of Triassic courtship. Still, the party's about to end again. Because just like in the Permian, the Triassic goes out with a bang. Another extinction looms. The cause? Likely volcanic eruptions tied to the breakup of Pangaea. Gas, ash, darkness. Sound familiar? About 200 million years ago, half the species on Earth vanish, including those croc-walking crurotarsans that had been giving dinosaurs a run for their money. And once again, it's the dinosaurs who survive. Not because they're the biggest, not because they're the meanest, just because they're stubborn and weird and slightly better adapted to chaos. When the dust settles, they're left standing. You exhale, letting your breath mingle with the sulfur-tinged air. You can feel the future clicking into place. The Triassic has been about auditions. Now the cast list is finalized. Next up, the Jurassic. And this time, dinosaurs aren't just part of the show. They're the stars. Here's your odd fact for the road. There's fossil evidence that early mammals back in the Triassic might have glowed in the dark under UV light like furry glow sticks. No one's sure why. Possibly camouflage. Possibly just to confuse time travelers like you. Sleep now. The giants are coming. The air thickens soft and muggy, like stepping into a botanical garden you didn't buy tickets for. Ferns grow taller than you now. Trees stretch high with leaves like green paper fans. Somewhere nearby, a stream babbles lazily. And you can hear it, the low creaking groan of something massive moving through the trees. Welcome to the Jurassic period about 170 million years ago. You inch forward along a warm, muddy trail, pushing aside fronds that brush your arms like sleepy cats. There's a scent in the air, sweet, grassy wet, except it isn't grass. Grass hasn't evolved yet. That smell, giant ferns, conifers, cycads, and something that might be related to modern ginkgo trees. It's like nature's first attempt at perfume, and she went all in on swampy floral. Then whoomp! The ground trembles. You freeze. Slowly, carefully, you tilt your head back. It's enormous. A brachiosaurus lumbers by on legs like cathedral columns. Its head sways far above you, neck arched like a living crane. It doesn't even notice you. It probably wouldn't notice a house. You could yell, and the sound wouldn't reach its ears until next week. You want a scientific fact? Here's one. Sauropods, like Brachiosaurus, were some of the largest animals to ever walk the earth. Some may have weighed over 60 tons. That's 12 elephants stacked into one long-necked leafy vacuum cleaner. But you want to hear something scientists still argue about? How they held their necks. Seriously. Some paleontologists say they arched them like swans. Others think they kept them low and horizontal, like massive garden hoses. The debate has raged for decades. Entire doctoral theses have been written on sauropod posture. Imagine that being your life's work, neck angles. A comparative study. Meanwhile, you duck as the tail of another dinosaur snaps by like a whip. Diplodocus. This one, thinner than Brachiosaurus, but even longer. That tail, scientists believe it could crack like a bullwhip, making a sound louder than a gunshot. Not for fighting, maybe for communication. Or flirting. Again, no one's really sure. It's all educated guessing and fossilized vertebrae. You find a warm boulder and sit. The Jurassic isn't just big, it's busy. You hear a clatter behind you, and then something with claws scampers past. Small, agile alert. Dilophosaurus, maybe. Except not like in the movies. No frill, no acid spit. Just teeth and a weird, twin-crested head that looks like it belongs on a futuristic motorcycle helmet. Movie myths aside, the early theropods of the Jurassic are evolving fast. Teeth sharpen. Limbs get lighter. Some species are beginning to twitch with proto-feathers. The predator game is heating up, and the prey are evolving armor in response. Somewhere nearby, a herd of stegosaurs trundle through the undergrowth. Their tails end in sharp spikes, called thagomizers, named after a Far Side cartoon. No joke. Yes, that's a real thing. Science has a sense of humor. They're basically armored bulldozers. Not particularly bright, tiny brains, famously, but they don't need wit. They've got weapons on both ends. You stretch out your legs and let your hand trail through the dirt. It's hot. The Earth is still one big continent. Pangaea hasn't fully split yet, but you can feel the tension. Fault lines creep. Oceans whisper along the edges. Soon, continents will drift apart like old friends, politely ignoring each other. And with those shifts will come new climates, new species, and new opportunities. Here's a weird one. During this time, Europe was mostly tropical islands. Picture the Bahamas, but with more spikes claws and slightly fewer daiquiris. A gentle breeze kicks up, brushing your hair. Above you, birdsong, but not quite birds. Not yet. Archaeopteryx might flutter overhead. Feathered, clawed, and still dragging a long, lizardy tail, it's caught somewhere between two worlds. Not quite dinosaur, not quite bird. A fossilized identity crisis. You watch as one lands clumsily on a branch, flaps once, then falls off entirely. Grace is evolving. Scientists still debate whether Archaeopteryx could really fly or just kind of glided and hoped. Honestly, same. The sun starts to dip, casting long shadows that sway and merge like dark tendrils across the ferns. You lie back and close your eyes. For now the world is calm. Giant, yes. Dangerous, sure. But calm. Here's a sleepy thought to drift off on. You're lying in the middle of what will one day become a highway. Maybe a city. Maybe someone's driveway. And under all of that, still buried deep, are bones. Not because they were placed there, but because time forgot them slowly. And if you ever find yourself feeling small, just remember this world once belonged to things so huge they didn't even bother to look down. And now you're here, right in their footprints. You wake up to a strange sound, something between a low hum and the rhythmic grinding of gears. Except this machine is organic. It's breathing, shifting, snorting through nostrils the size of dinner plates. You're not alone anymore. The dinosaurs have diversified. You step into a clearing surrounded by life so strange and vibrant, it feels like an alien zoo had a budget increase. But unlike before, you're no longer trying to spot the dinosaurs, you're trying not to trip over them. They're everywhere now. This is their world, their golden age. Welcome to the late Jurassic into early Cretaceous, when dinosaurs aren't just surviving, they're thriving like influencers who figured out how to monetize their egg hatching routines. You pass through a sun-drenched slope where a cluster of iguanodons graze lazily. They look vaguely horse-like if horses had thumbs, and occasionally reared up to yell at each other. One snorts in your direction and keeps chewing a mouthful of prehistoric salad like it owns the place. Fair enough. It kind of does. Here's your science moment. Dinosaurs aren't just one big category, they're split into two major hips-based groups, Saurischians, lizard-hipped, and Ornithischians, bird-hipped. Ironically, birds evolved from the lizard-hipped group. Yes, science is confusing. Yes, it still debates this. Saurischians include your long-necked sauropods and your meat-munching theropods. Ornithischians, on the other hand, are mostly herbivores, the duck-billed, frilled, armoured squad. Imagine a family reunion where one side brought teeth and the other brought salad tongs. You wander past a group of ankylosaurs lumbering like slow-moving tanks. Their backs are studded with bony plates and their tails end in clubs the size of microwave ovens. You instinctively keep a respectful distance. These creatures weren't fast, but if they hit you, you'd leave this time period in several uncomfortable pieces. There's something deeply real about them, not monsters, not movie stars, but animals. Just living, breathing, eating too much, waddling weirdly, pooping in unfortunate places. Which, by the way, leads us to a detail scientists rarely bring up at dinner parties. Dinosaurs pooped a lot, and we've found it coprolites fossilized poop. And from it, we've learned what they ate, how they digested it, and yes, what kind of digestive drama a 20-ton sauropod could inflict on the local ecosystem. Spoiler, it's a lot. Your foot brushes against something egg-shaped and warm. You freeze. Nest. You back away slowly. Somewhere nearby there's a parent, possibly several. Suddenly, a noise like a chainsaw being choked by a trumpet erupts from the trees. A Pachycephalosaurus bursts into view, its domed skull gleaming as it bashes into a rival. Scientists still debate whether they use those thick skulls for fighting or just elaborate displays, but this one is clearly team bonk first, ask later. You wonder if their skulls gave them headaches. Probably. Imagine trying to flirt by running headfirst into someone. Still, it's working for them. You tiptoe away as the two headbashers snort and circle like grumpy linebackers at a high school dance. Now the air changes. A chill rolls through the ferns. Not cold, but different. Like the start of something. A shift. Not the kind you notice right away, but the kind that builds across generations, across species. Ecosystems evolving in slow, patient swirls. The mammals are still around, by the way. Small, furry, nocturnal. They watch from burrows and shadows, waiting for night. They are not important right now, but one day they will inherit it all. And you standing here in the middle of this moment are watching both the peak of a kingdom and the first quiet whisper of its end. Before you lie countless species of dinosaurs, some of whom only lasted a few million years before going extinct and being replaced. It's a constant shuffle, a game of biological musical chairs. The winners are not the fiercest or the flashiest. They're the ones who adapt, or at least the ones who hang around long enough to try. And here's something weird to lull you to sleep. Scientists recently discovered fossilized footprints that suggest dinosaurs sometimes walked in herds and possibly even took midday naps together in groups. Imagine a whole field of T-Rexes napping like giant scaly puppies. Now try not to smile. You curl up in the grass and close your eyes. Around you, the sounds of creatures breathing, snorting, grunting life in full majestic swing. For now, the dinosaurs rule. They have no idea what's coming. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's better not to know you're at your peak until it's long gone. You wake to a rhythmic tremor, not violent, just persistent, like someone tapping the earth's shoulder again and again. You sit up in a nest of fern leaves, your breath fogging in the early morning air. Something's different. The dinosaurs you see now, they've changed. They're sleeker, faster, more specialized. You spot one dart through the trees, its claws sharp, its gait confident, its eyes disturbingly intelligent. Welcome to the Cretaceous period, the last and most dramatic act of the dinosaur age. You walk slowly into this new world. It feels more modern, at least by prehistoric standards. Flowers bloom, bees buzz, insects that look suspiciously like their current-day cousins swarm in the sun. Angiosperms flowering plants have arrived, transforming ecosystems into something fragrant, colourful, and somehow vaguely pollen-scented. You wander past a creek where a feathered dinosaur, Velociraptor mongoliensis, crouches at the edge, lapping up water. It's way smaller than the ones Hollywood promised. Knee-height, wiry, coated in stiff feathers, like a badly shaved parrot who's been through something. But it's alert, calculating, watching you in return. Your major scientific fact for today: birds evolved from small theropod dinosaurs, most likely from the dromaeosaurids, the same group Velociraptor belongs to. That's right. Every pigeon, every sparrow, every pre-dawn rooster is a dinosaur's great-great-grandkid. A slightly annoying one, but still. And scientists still debate just how many dinosaurs had feathers. The fossil record hints that it might have been common, not rare. Brightly coloured, patterned, textured feathers, not for flight, but for insulation, camouflage, or frankly, just showing off. You stop to observe a Therizinosaurus in the distance, one of evolution's most confusing punchlines. It's the size of a car, walks upright, and has 3 giant claws longer than a baseball bat. But instead of meat, it munches plants. A 9-foot Edward Scissorhands that just wants to garden. You're about to chuckle when something flashes past your peripheral vision. Tyrannosaurus Rex. No intro needed, right? But here's where things get interesting. This isn't the clunky, tail-dragging lizard of outdated textbooks. It's fast, balanced, muscular. A 40-foot, 7-ton bird lizard hybrid with banana-sized teeth and possibly yes feathers, at least as a juvenile. Scientists still debate whether adult T-Rexes were fully feathered or just fuzzy when young. Either way, you wouldn't survive long enough to appreciate the texture. You watch as it leans down, sniffs a carcass, and rumbles off tail, counterbalancing every step like a trained dancer from the Eat Everything ballet. Here's your weird fact. T. Rex had one of the strongest bite forces in animal history up to 12,800 pounds of pressure. That's enough to bite through a car. But oddly, its arms still hilariously small. Some scientists believe that they were used for mating. Others think they were just evolutionary leftovers, useless, but not harmful enough to go away. You crouch low as a herd of hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs stampedes nearby, honking like an orchestra of broken saxophones. Their calls echo through the forest. They're social creatures travelling in groups, possibly even taking turns watching the kids. You see one nudge a smaller hadrosaur forward with its snout, then glance at you. Protective, parental, maybe even annoyed. These creatures aren't monsters. They're relatable. They argue, they mate, they raise kids, they sunbathe. They poop dramatically in the middle of trails like dogs with no shame. You pause beside a fallen log and find something glinting in the dirt. A fossilized feather, dark, delicate striped. You rub your thumb along its edge. It's ancient, but it still carries weight like a time traveler's love letter sealed in stone. One of the earliest true feathers that would later inspire flight warmth colour and the smug confidence of modern peacocks. Then a curious detail clicks in your brain. The climate during the Cretaceous wasn't just warm, it was hyperactive. Volcanic activity, rising sea levels, continental drift. Dinosaurs had to adapt constantly. It wasn't just survival of the fittest, it was survival of the flexible. Some went bigger, some smaller, some sprouted beaks, some grew armour, some, like the raptor family, grew smart. In fact, scientists argue that if the extinction hadn't happened, some species might have continued evolving toward higher intelligence. Think of that. A world where the dominant life form isn't a human, but a 6-foot feathered predator who's mastered fire and farming. And maybe sarcasm. You lean back against the log and exhale slowly. Above you, a flock of primitive birds soars by, still awkward still, figuring it out. But flying. Actually flying. The giants may rule the earth, but the skies, they belong to a new generation now. You close your eyes, smile a little, and let the sounds of this golden age wash over you. Squawks, snorts, rustling leaves, distant thunder that might not be weather. It's peaceful, but it won't last. But you don't have to worry about that tonight. Just sleep under the stars of an ancient sky where even the most terrifying predators still have bedtime routines. You wake to the sound of snorting. Not the terrifying kind, more like a grumbly, lazy sort of sigh, the kind you'd hear from a roommate trying to get comfortable under too many blankets. Except this roommate weighs 3 tons and is currently chewing an entire bush like it's a bedtime snack. You're staring straight into the droopy, half-lidded eyes of a ceratopsian. Don't panic. He's too busy chewing to care about you. He blinks, snorts again, and plods off the huge frill at the back of his head, wobbling like an over-decorated parade float. You've landed deep into the late Cretaceous now, and it's clear dinosaurs don't just exist here. They're everywhere, doing everything. Let's talk about the daily lives of these creatures, not the chase scenes, not the fights, but the boring stuff. The real-life stuff. The pooping, parenting, and prehistoric equivalent of getting rained on during a picnic. You trail a group of Maiasaura whose name literally means good mother lizard. And for once, the name fits. This species seems to care about its young, tending to nests, guarding eggs, even bringing food to hatchlings. You watch as one adult nudges its chick back into a nest with the tenderness of a parent trying to get a toddler into bed before they start another tantrum. That's your major science fact for tonight. Some dinosaurs showed parental care. Fossil evidence suggests Maiasaura raised their young in groups, possibly even in communal nesting grounds. They fed them, protected them, and in some cases mourned their loss. In short, dinosaurs were not just brutes, they were caregivers too. Meanwhile, off in the distance, two ankylosaurs are having a slow-motion traffic jam. Both are covered in thick, bony plates, tails tipped with brutal clubs. Neither seems willing to move. They grunt at each other like passive-aggressive bumper cars. You sit on a rock and watch this standoff play out over what feels like an hour. Eventually, one turns and waddles away. Victory by stubbornness. You follow a dry riverbed where a cluster of small theropods are sunbathing like lazy reptiles' bellies pressed to warm rocks. A couple squabble over a carcass, nothing dramatic, just hiss, snap, hiss again. Then one sulks off, muttering whatever passes for dinosaur profanity. You step over a giant footprint filled with rainwater and something else. Ah, right, dinosaur poop. Here's your irrelevant fact. Some species may have used feces to mark territory, or even as a kind of prehistoric sunscreen. That's right, crocodile poop sunscreen. Modern crocs have been seen smearing dung on their backs to protect against UV rays. Could dinosaurs have done something similar? Possibly. Scientists still debate it. Imagine a T-Rex lathering up with a fresh, steamy dollop of SPF Doo-Doo 50. Anyway, the idea of dinosaurs just doing ordinary animal things, getting sunburned, squabbling over snacks, napping in groups, is strangely soothing. It reminds you that life is messy even at the top of the food chain. You spot a Parasaurolophus nearby, big duck-billed and crowned with that wild backward crest that looks like a bendy straw stuck on wrong. It lifts its head and lets out a low, haunting call, somewhere between a foghorn and a whale song. Scientists believe that long crest was used as a resonating chamber, turning air into music. Possibly for communication. Possibly just to be loud. And if you're wondering, yes, scientists still argue about that too. You pause to sip water from a stream. It tastes like minerals and moss. A small bird, yes, a real bird, not a dinosaur, that kind of looks like one lands beside you. It tilts its head, chirps once, and hops away. It's the future perched on the edge of the past. And somewhere behind you in the shadows, you hear a soft thump. You don't turn around. Not tonight. Let's leave the predators for later. Instead, you lie back in the grass and watch the sky turn violet. The stars overhead are dimmed by a thin golden haze. Not smoke. Not yet. Just dust. Just the soft warning of a world inching toward its finale. But we're not there yet. Tonight, life goes on. Dinosaurs mate. They nest. They squabble. They preen feathers that may have been bright pink for all we know. They worry about things you'll never understand. And in their own way, they sleep. The earth, as always, turns. And you, nestled in the warmth of ancient grass, let your mind drift with it. You're lying in a shallow, leaf-filled depression, a nest someone forgot to claim. Above you, dawn slides gently through the canopy in golden ribbons. All around the world hums. But this morning, it's not about size. It's about intelligence. You're surrounded by theropods, the bipedal meat-eaters. Not all are enormous lumbering tyrants. Some are the size of turkeys. Some are turkeys depending on who you ask. And some, well, some are smart. You crouch low and follow one of the most notorious groups in dino history, the Maniraptorans. If that name sounds like a dinosaur-themed hairband, you're forgiven. In reality, it includes species like Troodon velociraptor and the earliest birds. Troodon is especially strange. It has grasping hands, big eyes, feathers, and a brain that pound for pound is one of the largest among dinosaurs. Its intelligence doesn't rival a dolphin's, but for a creature that can't make a spreadsheet, it's doing fine. You watch as one creeps up on a lizard. It pauses, tilts its head, calculating. Then it darts forward with a speed that makes your heart stutter. One bite, one swallow. Gone. You mutter, "Clever girl," before you realize how cliché that is. The Troodon doesn't seem to mind. She licks her lips, flutters her arms almost bird-like, and vanishes into the brush. Here's your main science fact. Theropods weren't just the scary meat-eaters, they were some of the first problem solvers. Their hands, their senses, their social behaviours, these are all traits birds inherited and refined. It's easy to imagine a world where a few more million years turned Troodon into something more. More thinking, more planning, maybe even language. And scientists still debate just how smart they were. Were they tool users? Did they hunt in coordinated packs? Were they socially complex, like wolves or parrots? We don't know. We're working from bones and brain case volumes, not diary entries. You wander further and stumble upon a raptor family group. Feathers, claws, the works. One is sharpening its sickle-shaped toe claw on a rock. Another rolls in the dust like a contented pigeon. The youngest makes a high-pitched squeak and jumps on a sibling. It's oddly adorable. You think about cats. You creep past, careful not to spook them. You're not on the menu, but you don't want to test their curiosity. That claw. It was designed to slash tendons, not open boxes. And now, as you push through the foliage, you arrive at a small clearing and freeze. There, lying in the sun, is a young T-Rex, but not what you expect. It's covered in downy feathers, limbs tucked under its body like a napping goose. Its chest rises and falls slowly. Its mouth twitches in sleep. It's dreaming. Maybe. Maybe not. But scientists have discovered that some birds experience REM sleep, which is linked to dreaming. If their dinosaur ancestors did too, then who knows? Maybe this little apex predator is chasing something through its mind. A beetle, a rival, a very smug herbivore. The idea that dinosaurs slept like birds opens a quiet, intimate window into their lives. You stop seeing them as monsters and start seeing them as animals. Wild, mysterious, vulnerable. They stretch, they yawn, they dream. And while we're here, let's appreciate something odd and easily forgotten. Dinosaurs had ears tucked behind their heads, hidden under skin and feathers. No external flaps like mammals, just subtle holes that heard in a way we still don't fully understand. Their sense of hearing could have been sharp or dull. Scientists still debate the auditory capabilities of different species. Some may have relied more on sight. Others might have heard the low thrum of footsteps miles away. You linger in the clearing as the young T-Rex stirs. It opens one eye, glances at you, then promptly rolls over and goes back to sleep. You grin and tiptoe away, heart full. Back on the trail, the forest grows denser. Something calls from the canopy, a hooting bark like a dinosaur-owl hybrid. You squint upward and see a feathered form fluttering branch to branch. Could be an early bird, could be a microraptor. Either way, flight is evolving, not as a single eureka moment, but as a slow transition. First glides, then flaps, then lift. Evolution is never instant. It's millions of years of maybe this works. You wonder how it felt the first time one of them stayed in the air just a little longer than expected. You pass a carcass already picked over, feathers scattered, claw marks in the dirt. Life is still brutal here, but also tender, strange, and quietly beautiful. Your irrelevant fact for the night: one species, Alvarezsaurus, had tiny single-fingered arms that probably weren't good for much, except maybe tearing open insect nests. They were the anteaters of the dinosaur world, wearing feathers and digging holes. No evolution does not care how silly it looks, as long as it works. You lie back in the ferns once more, mind spinning with claws and feathers, claws and feathers. Tonight, you've walked alongside the clever ones, the twitchy, fast, slightly paranoid ones, the ones that would someday inherit the air. And maybe, just maybe, this time, they're dreaming of you too. You wake beneath a violet-tinted sky. The colours are strange this morning, too orange, too red, like the sunrise is overcompensating. The trees rustle, but not with wind. Something's off. Still, life goes on. You follow a well-worn trail near a watering hole. Dinosaurs come and go in a rhythm that feels familiar. Now triceratopses clunking through the mud, duckbills honking like badly tuned brass instruments, and small fluffy predators skittering between ferns just out of sight. But the mood has shifted. The forests feel tense, as though even the trees have picked up on something in the air. And then, the big ones arrive. You hear them before you see them. Deep thuds like drums in slow motion. The ground vibrates beneath your feet. It's Giganotosaurus, the apex predator of South America, bigger than even T-Rex, though leaner, faster, and arguably more stylish. You spot it tearing into the carcass of a massive sauropod. Blood splashes against its jaw, steam rising in the cool morning light. But there's no roaring, no posing. Just eating. This isn't drama, it's dinner. Here's your science fact. Giganotosaurus was part of a group of massive carnivores in the Cretaceous arms race alongside Carcharodontosaurus, Spinosaurus, and yes, T-Rex. Different continents, different kings. It's like every landmass rolled its own boss monster and hit accept. And scientists still argue about which one was biggest. Some say Spinosaurus had the length advantage, but not the bite. T-Rex wins on jaw pressure. Giganotosaurus wins on pure intimidation. It's a prehistoric popularity contest with fossils. You sneak away before the giga notices you. It wouldn't eat you out of hunger, it would eat you out of curiosity. And that's so much worse. Back in the underbrush, you stumble upon a tiny miracle. A nest. But not just eggs. Hatchlings. Fluffy, blinking, chirping hatchlings. You duck down and peer between leaves as a Maiasaura gently nosed her babies into the bowl of the nest. Her eyes flick to you once briefly, and then she goes back to work. The cycle continues. Even with danger nearby, life insists. Nearby, two Pachyrhinosaurus males are circling one another. No horns here, just thick, bony bosses on their noses. They shove and grunt like frat boys in a slow-motion headbutt contest. You'd laugh if one of them didn't suddenly sneeze in your direction with shocking force. Dino, snot. You're welcome. Here's an irrelevant fact. Some herbivorous dinosaurs, like the hadrosaurs, had hundreds of constantly replacing teeth, like conveyor belts of chewing power. A few scientists have lovingly dubbed their jaws masticatory marvels. Yes, really. Imagine trying to floss that. The day grows hotter and stranger. The sky still feels wrong. You've seen dust before, but this is different. Finer, redder. You feel it on your tongue. Metallic, dry. There are reports, fossil records of climate instability in the late Cretaceous. Massive volcanic eruptions in what is now India, the Deccan traps, spewing carbon dioxide and sulfur poisoning the skies. Crops wilt. Ecosystems strain. The air thickens. And still the dinosaurs go about their lives. You pass a pair of oviraptors, curled in a nest. Their name means egg thief. But that's a bit unfair. Turns out they were probably just good parents sitting on their own clutches. Oops. Science got that one wrong for decades. It happens. You walk through a grove of conifers, the piney ancestors of Christmas trees. A small raptor leaps between branches, feathers flashing in the light. It screams something between a parrot squawk and a hawk's cry. You wave awkwardly. It poops on a leaf and vanishes. Charming. And then you feel it, a sudden stillness. The wind dies. Birds scatter. A pause that isn't just quiet, but hollow, like the world is holding its breath. Even the insects fall silent. You look up, shielding your eyes. Nothing yet. But something's coming. You don't know what. Neither do they. You crouch down in the undergrowth, hiding for no reason other than instinct. The kind that hums beneath reason. That deep animal voice in your spine, whispering something's ending. But no one's running. No one suspects anything. Why would they? The Giganotosaurus keeps eating. The hatchlings keep chirping. Somewhere a tyrannosaur yawns. That's the thing about endings. You never know you're in one until the lights go out. It starts as a flicker. You glance upward again. Just a reflex now. But this time, something's different. A streak across the sky. Not a cloud, not a bird. It glows faintly wrong somehow. Silent, unnatural. You blink. It's already gone. You could dismiss it. Maybe you should, after all the dinosaurs around you haven't noticed. A nearby Corythosaurus honks drowsily, stretching its neck like a giraffe trying yoga. A Therizinosaurus is busy raking bark off a tree with those absurd Edward Scissorhands claws. Somewhere, a Microraptor scuttles between branches, chasing dragonflies. Life goes on. But the air it knows. You sit down by a bubbling stream. The water tastes metallic now. Still drinkable, still cold. But every part of the world feels tight. Like someone's been winding the planet up slowly, silently, click by click. Here's your science fact. Roughly 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid estimated at 10 to 15 kilometers wide slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, creating the Chicxulub crater. The impact released energy equivalent to 1 billion Hiroshima bombs. That's not poetic exaggeration. That's physics. And scientists still debate the exact chain reaction. Was it the shockwave? The global fires, the sulfur dust that blotted out the sun, or the acid rain that followed? Some argue that volcanic activity was already weakening the ecosystem. Others say the asteroid sealed the deal. Either way, the result was the same mass extinction. But no one here knows yet. A family of triceratops grazes calmly in the distance, tails swaying. A pair of ankylosaurs nap in the suntails, curled under them like dogs. A juvenile T-Rex stalks a flock of ornithomimids and gets distracted halfway through. You hear it trip, fall and scream with frustration, like a toddler denied dessert. You want to laugh. You also want to cry. Because all of this, it's days from vanishing. Most species here will disappear about 75% of all life on Earth. Only a few lucky, quiet, unassuming creatures will make it, including a handful of small feathered dinosaurs with hollow bones, good vision, and the kind of nervous energy you recognize from modern-day robins. That's your real fact for the night. Birds didn't just survive the extinction. They were dinosaurs that made it out the side door. They were already small, already adaptable, already living fast and light. When the fires rained down and the world turned cold and dark, they didn't roar. They flew. Your irrelevant but endearing fact. There's evidence that some species, like the small Alvarez saurids, may have burrowed or lived underground. They had tiny mole-like arms and may have been insectivores. When things fell from the sky, they were already out of sight. The sunlight starts to change. Shadows stretch long, but the sky's still midday bright. The angle's wrong. Light flickers oddly across leaves. You feel your chest tighten. The planet's still spinning, but its story is about to take a hard left. You pass a nesting site. Dozens of eggs, warm and silent. A female oviraptor lies half asleep on her clutch wings, splayed, blinking lazily. You wonder if she'll ever feel the tremor coming. If the chicks inside the eggs will ever hatch. If they'll get a chance to screech once before the sky changes colour forever. You pause beside a group of ornithomimous, skinny-legged speedsters who dart through brush like caffeinated emus. They stare at you briefly, then vanish into the undergrowth. Their footfalls sound like whispers. And then quiet. True, unnatural quiet. The kind of quiet that makes the bugs stop buzzing. That makes rivers feel like they're whispering prayers. That makes you feel like you're standing on the edge of a sharp, invisible cliff. You look up one more time, and there it is. A growing light. No roar, no thunder. Just speed, heat, purpose. You can't look away. No one can. Not the T-Rex chasing prey. Not the pterosaurs circling the cliffs. Not the little raptors watching from the trees. Somewhere, a volcano rumbles. The ground is beginning to shake. Not gently, not rhythmically, but deeply, like the planet is being struck from the outside. You breathe in, you exhale. And for a moment, a fraction of a second longer than you want to admit, you wish you could stop it. Warn them. Cry out. But this story has already been written. It's carved into stone. It echoes through canyons. It flutters in bird bones. And so you close your eyes. You imagine feathers swirling in firelight. And you wait for the world to change. When it hits, it doesn't sound like thunder. It sounds like the world tearing in half. Your ears ring before you even realize what's happening. The light blinds you, not like sunlight, but like staring directly into the sun from inside a furnace. The sky goes white, then orange, then black. You throw yourself behind a cluster of fallen logs, arms over your head, though nothing in you believes that'll help. The forest groans. Trees lean, crack, fall in slow motion agony. Animals scream calls you've never heard, will never hear again. And then comes the wind. Hot, fast, furious. Not like any wind you've ever felt. It doesn't just blow, it scours. It tears leaves from branches, bark from trees, skin from anything too slow. You clutch the dirt eyes shut, mouth full of ash, and wait for the roaring to stop. It doesn't. Not for hours. Maybe longer. Eventually, maybe the next day, maybe a week later, you crawl out. Everything smells like burned stone and lightning. And suddenly, the dinosaurs are gone. You walk through a world hushed in trauma. Ash coats everything. The sun is gone, blotted out by a ceiling of soot and sulfur. The impact winter has begun. The planet didn't die all at once. It dimmed. Here's your major science fact. That asteroid kicked vaporized rock and sulfur into the atmosphere, creating a global layer of dust that blocked sunlight for months or even years. Without photosynthesis, plants died. Then herbivores, then carnivores. Only the smallest, most adaptable creatures made it. The dinosaurs that ruled for over 150 million years, almost all wiped out in the span of a geological instant. But not entirely. You hear it. Faint. A trill, a chirp, delicate, hopeful. You follow it through the soot-streaked trees. There, perched on a branch, wings fluffed out, is a bird. Not a survivor. A continuation. Scientists still debate which exact lineage of birds made it through. But some did. Likely small. Ground-dwelling. Able to eat almost anything. Possibly living near water or burrowing for shelter. You watch it flutter to the ground, pecking at a dead insect like it's just another Tuesday. There's something incredibly stubborn about that bird. It doesn't care that the world just ended. It's still hungry, still alert, still here. And here's your odd fact. One theory suggests that the reason birds outlived their larger cousins might be beaks. With no teeth to grow and maintain, beaked animals could hatch and feed themselves faster. Less energy, less time, more survival. Basically, birds were evolutionary minimalists, and it paid off. You wander through the silence. Around you, broken shells, scorched ferns, footprints filled with ash. The world is still moving, but slower now. Cautiously, you come upon a small group of mammals, shivering, wide-eyed, whiskered things. They're digging in the dirt, sniffing at grubs. You recognize something in them. Not just fear, cleverness. They are the next chapter. Because while the dinosaurs were kings of brute strength and size, mammals had waited in the wings, evolved in the shadows. And now, with the giants gone, they would creep into the sun. Not to replace them, but to begin again. You kneel beside a shallow puddle, watching your own reflection tremble. You look tired, dusty, a little ridiculous, but also part of it. Because humans, you are not apart from this story. You're the great, many times over result of that moment in time. That impact, that fire, that winter, those are your inheritance. Your unlikely lottery win. Without the asteroid, dinosaurs might still rule. Troodon might have built cities. Velociraptors might have invented jazz. But they didn't. You're what came next. And that's a little terrifying. but also kind of beautiful. You look up at the sky, still grey, still quiet. But somewhere beyond the clouds, the sun is waiting. It always is. Even in an extinction, there is light ahead. So you close your eyes, and for the first time since the sky fell, you smile. Because deep in the dirt, in the shadows under feathers and fur and fear, life is beginning again. The world doesn't bounce back, it limps. You step through a wounded earth. Trees are charred soil, stripped bare in patches, rivers sluggish and dark. But here and there, in the quiet ruin, green returns. First it's moss, then stubborn little ferns. Then somehow a single pink flower, half dead, still radiant. You kneel beside it and laugh softly. Because even after all that, something is blooming. This is what scientists call a biological bottleneck, a moment in evolution where most lineages die and only a few make it through. It's brutal. But it's also strangely cleansing. The survivors inherit a world with room to grow. And that's what they do. You pass a thicket where birds flutter like leaf ghosts. They're small, scrappy, and surprisingly chatty. Some hop across the ground. Some peck insects off bark. None of them roar. None of them thunder. But they are, make no mistake, dinosaurs. Not like the ones you met before, but descendants adapted, slimmed down, smarter in some ways, maybe luckier in others. They wear the past in their bones, their beaks, their hollow limbs. Their ancestors were kings. They're survivors. Here's your major science fact. Birds today still carry genetic and anatomical links to theropod dinosaurs. Their skeletons, fused clavicles, air sacs, foot structure are echoes of raptors and tyrants. Evolution didn't erase dinosaurs. It just folded them into feathers. You hike toward a new coastline. With so much land reshaped after the impact, sea levels rise, continents shift and new ecosystems form. Insects return in droves, fish thrive, amphibians rebound, and mammals, they begin to evolve. You spot a few foraging at dusk. They're still small, nothing resembling a lion or a whale, yet just rodent-shaped generalists. But behind their eyes you see it, curiosity. They sniff, they taste, they test things. They're risk-takers. And evolution loves risk. And scientists still debate just how quickly mammals diversified after the extinction. Some evidence says they exploded in variety almost immediately. Others suggest it took millions of years for ecosystems to truly stabilize. Either way, these furry little pioneers are the early drafts of what's to come. Here's a weird fact to nibble on. Some post-extinction mammals had teeth adapted to crunch insects and hard seeds, suggesting they filled in ecological roles that were suddenly very available. Imagine walking into a giant buffet where all the diners vanished. You wouldn't need reservations, you'd need a stomach. You walk under a sky that's finally starting to clear. For the first time in ages, the stars peek through, and you realize this is the same sky dinosaurs lived under, the same constellations, the same moon. And now it's your turn to look up. You pause on a high ridge. Below the landscape is healing. You see patches of forest returning, a river carving its way through ash and stone, birds nesting in the branches of trees they didn't plant. Everything is quieter. But it's not empty. It's resetting. You pull a broken feather from a branch, striped, barbed, beautiful. It could have belonged to a dinosaur or a crow or something in between. And you tuck it behind your ear like a souvenir from a dream. Because let's be honest, all of this, it feels like a dream. The thunder lizards, the skyfall, the long silence. And yet it's real. As real as your heartbeat. As real as the fossil record beneath your feet. As real as the pigeon that dive-bombed your sandwich last week. You are walking in the shadow of giants tracing their extinction, one breath at a time. Somewhere out beyond the ridge, a small feathered creature calls out into the night. It doesn't know what came before it. It doesn't care. It only knows that the world is its to explore now. And that's all life has ever needed. You wake to birdsong, not the exotic cries of microraptors or the echoing trumpet of a Parasaurolophus, just the cheerful, chaotic chirps of modern birds. Robins, wrens, maybe a cranky magpie arguing with its reflection. It's unmistakable. It's now. You're home. Well, sort of. You're still surrounded by echoes. The rocks here are full of fossils. Everywhere you look, the past peeks out. Petrified footprints pressed into stone. A ripple in shale that was once a lake's surface. You even spot what might be a rib bone jutting from a cliff face like a secret trying to stay buried. And it hits you. The dinosaurs aren't gone. They're just quiet. You head down a forest path, boots crunching over leaf litter. The trees look familiar, now oaks, birches, maples. But the birds darting between branches, they're living fossils. A pigeon is a modified dinosaur in a business suit. A hawk is a raptor in disguise. And a hummingbird, it's a tea. Rex that swapped teeth for glitter. Here's your science fact for the day. Modern birds belong to a clade called aves, which evolved from small theropod dinosaurs during the Jurassic and Cretaceous. Their skeletons, lungs, even their behavior, preening, nesting, territorial singing, are all ancestral carryovers. And scientists still debate whether birds should be called dinosaurs in casual language. Technically, yes, they're in the same evolutionary group. But try putting feral dinosaurs "please don't feed on a park" sign and see how long it lasts. You pass a museum, pale and windowless, except for a giant mural of dinosaurs in motion, feathered, running mid-screech. Inside, there's a skeleton of Tyrannosaurus Rex, posed in full drama, one leg forward, mouth open, tail lifted. Tourists stare up in awe. A kid points and gasps. You hear someone whisper, "Was it real?" You want to tap their shoulder and say, "Yes, realer than you know." And not just in bones, in birds, in genes, in dreams. You sit on a bench out front. A squirrel tries to climb your shoe. You let it. After all, if the asteroid hadn't wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs, squirrels might not exist. Or you, or language, or podcasts about language. Because here's the quiet truth. Mass extinction cleared the stage. Mammals moved in. And over tens of millions of years, one line of primates figured out how to use fire, make tools, write books, and tell bedtime stories about creatures long gone. You're one of them. Your odd fact today: some fossilized dino skin impressions show scaly and feathery patches side by side, suggesting that dinosaurs, like modern birds, may have had combo patterns. Think striped tails, fuzzy arms, and scaly legs. Basically, they were prehistoric fashion disasters. And we love them for it. You walk home. Along the way, you see a crow pick up a shiny piece of foil and fly off with it. You wonder what it thinks it is. Treasure A. Tool. A mirror. Crows have a brain-to-body ratio similar to apes. Their intelligence is undeniable, and they're descendants of dinosaurs. So really, dinosaurs have learned how to make tools. They've learned to grieve, to recognize faces, to hold grudges, to sing. You lie in bed that night, window cracked open, and listen. There it is again, birdsong. A lullaby written over millions of years. Half memory, half mutation. You close your eyes and you see it not just the T-Rex and the Triceratops, but the lizards, the feathers, the nesting Maiasaura. The first scaly reptile dragging itself from a Permian swamp. The first creature to sprint upright on awkward legs and never look back. And then the asteroid, the ash, the silence and the song that came after. The dinosaurs aren't gone. They're in the trees. They're in the bones of your breakfast eggs. They're in your heartbeat. They're in your dreams. You find yourself wandering a museum again, but this time it's nighttime. No crowds. No field trip kids with juice boxes. Just quiet and that subtle hum of air conditioning whispering through corridors like an unseen ghost. Security lights cast long shadows over glass cases. You pause in front of a fossil. It's not a T-Rex, not a Triceratops, just a femur, cracked and heavy with a plaque that reads something polite and formal. Hadrosauridae, late Cretaceous. You stare at it and it stares back. Because this isn't a bone, it's a story. A story told in calcium and pressure and time. A story longer than any civilization, longer than written language, longer than fire. You feel like a visitor in someone else's home, because you are. This whole time, you've been traveling through a world that wasn't made for you. A world shaped by giants by their weight, their migration paths, their mating calls and tail swipes and footprints the size of hot tubs. And even though they're not walking around anymore, you're still living in the house they built. Here's your science fact tonight. Modern ecosystems are still directly influenced by the extinction of the dinosaurs. The rise of mammals, flowering plants, pollinators, and ultimately human civilization, all unfolded in the ecological space left behind. The asteroid didn't just clear the board, it rearranged the rules. And scientists still debate how fast it all happened. Did birds radiate instantly? Did mammals explode overnight? Did life crawl forward or leap? The fossil record has gaps. But what's undeniable is this: we're here because they aren't. You move through the rest of the exhibit in slow motion. Every case is a quiet monument. Claws, eggs, coprolites, jawbones. You find one that displays the preserved impression of a dinosaur's skin. It's scaly, yes, but delicate. You can almost feel it, rubbery pebbled like a basketball left in the sun too long. And here's your odd fact, that skin based on its structure may have had color-changing abilities. Like a chameleon. Some paleontologists speculate certain dinosaurs could flush their frills with blood to change color, like modern lizards, or even turkeys. The past had drama too. You step outside into the night air. The city is quiet. Overhead, a pale moon drifts between clouds. A bat flutters by, another little survivor of ancient lineages. You realize the trees rustling in the breeze are the descendants of conifers the dinosaurs once scratched their claws against. Everywhere around you echoes, even in your own body. You ever notice how your collarbones are shaped? Those come from the same bone structure that helped early dinosaurs brace their arms for balance and locomotion. And that hiccup you sometimes get, one theory says it's a leftover reflex from our amphibian ancestors, triggered by the same nerve paths that regulated breathing in water. You are a tangled thread of biology stretching back through fish, amphibians, early mammals. And yes, through the shadows of dinosaurs. You sit on a park bench under the stars. You close your eyes, and in the darkness, the stories come again. A raptor watching over her nest. A sauropod chewing its last meal in a meadow that will become a desert. A tiny mammal hiding from fire, heart beating like a drum. None of them knew what would come next. None of them knew that millions of years later, a strange two-legged creature would build radios and bicycles and worry about things like parking tickets. They just lived and loved and tried, just like you. Tonight, you're not traveling through time. You're drifting through memory. Not yours exactly, but Earth's. A kind of deep time dreaming. The way rocks remember oceans. The way trees remember fire. The way birds remember teeth. You find yourself walking beside a quiet lake under starlight. The surface is perfectly still, reflecting the moon with unnatural clarity. You almost don't want to step near it, afraid you'll wake something slumbering beneath. But you do, and the ripples spread. A heron calls in the distance. Or maybe something older. You imagine it with claws, with scales, with a name no one remembers. Because while dinosaurs are now extinct, their stories are everywhere. Not just in fossils or science books or CGI movies, but in culture, in language, in the way we teach children to roar like T-Rex before they even know what an asteroid is. You look up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a rock once hurtled toward Earth and ended an era. And now, you hold that era in your mind, in your hands. You can name them, draw them, dream them. That's your science fact tonight. Dinosaurs have become one of humanity's most enduring fascinations. From the first fossil misidentified as a dragon bone to the modern field of paleogenomics, we've spent centuries trying to resurrect the past in our imagination. And scientists still debate why dinosaurs capture us so completely. Is it their scale, their mystery, the tragedy of their fall, or the fact that they leave just enough behind to wonder, but never enough to know? You settle down on a patch of grass, arms behind your head. The air is cool. A breeze shifts the grass in long, slow waves. You close your eyes. You see them again, a stegosaurus tail swinging lazily like a sleepy metronome. A dromaeosaur feathers ruffled, blinking in early morning light. A sauropod drinking from a stream that hasn't existed in 60 million years. You see parents guarding eggs, herds migrating across floodplains, predators sharpening their claws on ancient stone. You even hear its soft, barely audible a call from the forest, something between a roar and a song. And here's your irrelevant but lovely fact. Some dinosaurs, like Corythosaurus, had intricate nasal crests that likely allowed them to make low, haunting sounds, possibly to communicate across long distances, like whales in the forest. Imagine walking through trees and hearing that low, moaning echo, and knowing something is watching you, but gently. You open your eyes again. The lake is still there. The stars are still up. But the dinosaurs, they're not gone. Not really. They're folded into everything, into the robin outside your window, into the strange dream you had as a kid of flying without wings, into the way we look at huge bones in museums and whisper, how did something like this even exist? Because that's the trick. They did exist, and they left behind enough of themselves to make sure they'd never truly leave. You're standing on the edge of a cliff at sunrise. Below you, a modern forest stretches out alive with chirps, rustles, and the buzz of insects beginning their morning shift. Light spills over the horizon in soft gold, dappling the trees, sliding over rooftops in the distance, warming your face. You've come full circle, from primordial oceans to lizard-hipped giants, from asteroid fire to birdsong. You've walked through millions of years barefoot on the bones of giants, quiet in their shadows. Now here you are, in your own time. But you're not alone, because dinosaurs never really left you. They just changed form. You sit down on a boulder, worn smooth by rain. It feels ancient, solid, comfortable. You breathe in the cool air tasting dew and soil and the faint scent of pine. Somewhere nearby, a crow calls sharp, raspy, familiar. It sounds annoyed at nothing, which somehow feels perfectly dinosaur. Here's your final science fact. Everything we know about dinosaurs, every claw, feather, tooth and footprint comes from paleontology, the slow, patient art of piecing together life from what it leaves behind. Rocks don't lie, but they don't tell the full story either. That part we imagine. And scientists still debate the limits of that imagination. How much can we really know from fossils? How much do we fill in because we want to understand? Are we reconstructing history or building mythology in stone? Maybe both. You lean back and close your eyes, not from sleep this time, but from peace, from fullness. Your brain is heavy with creatures now. Your dreams are crowded with feathers and scales and tails that sweep through ferns like whispers. Your irrelevant but very human fact tonight. We've named over 1,000 species of dinosaurs, and we're discovering more all the time. Some get named after celebrities, others after local legends. Some are just inside jokes between paleontologists. In the end, naming them is one of the ways we make them real again. Because that's what we do. We remember. We tell stories, we pass them on. You think of all the places dinosaurs are now on mugs, in cartoons, in bedtime books, in the tattoos of someone who never really stopped loving them. They've become symbols not just of extinction, but of wonder. They remind us that Earth was once so different, it seems like fiction, and that everything we know, everything we are, was made possible by their fall. The dinosaurs ruled for over 150 million years. They didn't fail. They just finished. And what they left behind is this: you.